So maybe we'll go
Sorry, Dan.
around this way. And who you are and what organization you represent. So
I'm Lisa Oversky. I'm the president of the Chaska Historical Society.
I'm Mel Carlson, the manager of Nicolay Bank in Chaska and Chanhassen.
I'm Jeff Kurth with SRF Consulting, the project engineer for the county on the Angler construction project.
Elise Durbin, City of Chaska.
Derek Main with Carver County, Deputy Project Manager for the 10 and 41 project.
Jen Angel, I'm the administrator for the SSD.
Dan Keyport, I own the Chaska Depot building and I'm president of the Downtown Business Alliance.
Christy Cotner, and I'm with Old National Bank.
Kelsey Myos, I'm also with Old National Bank.
Sarah Amundson, Hayloft Studios.
Steve Curtis, Southwest Metro Chamber of Commerce.
Sydney Seifert, Parks and Rec.
Nikhil Hatfield, City Council and Liaison for Downtown Business Alliance.
Krista Mark, I'm with the city.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming this morning. Looks like we do not have a quorum for approving.
We have Krista on.
Oh, we do?
Oh,
Oh,
nice. We are.
great. Hello, Krista. Welcome.
Yes. We have quite a few online. Julie is online because she is traveling. And we have Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, library, right?
Correct, from the library. Yep.
Sarah, as part of the project team, is also online, and Elise.
I gotta share something.
Yes.
I'm in two places at once.
You're
Yes.
you're good. You're real good. So,
Schrodinger, city administrator.
oh yeah, so
Okay,
we
so
have,
then we need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Oh, and Steve's
approve the
here.
Minutes. Good morning, Steve. So we have a motion and a second?
that was Mel and Steve.
Sure.
He's all over it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Treasurer's report, Jen.
We have a couple of things going on. As we talked last month, we had our Michael payment and some of the other administrative things like our insurance go through in Q1. That traditionally has been the only spending that we really have in Q1 once we stopped doing the ICE event. I added the Q2 payment there. That will get submitted to Julie today. Just to give you an idea coming into Q2 that we do have that we're tracking ahead of where we would normally be because one of the things we changed was our insurance coverage. We kept the same coverage, but we're able to cut down the expense by about $300. As we've talked most of last year, a lot of what we're doing with our expenses is trying to find ways to reduce them so that we can continue to get more bang for our buck. The other expense that has been reoccurring is we have $150 a month that we use to boost the Downtown Chaska Facebook page. Obviously, the more visitors that we have that like the page, the more the information that we share for businesses and our own information gets out there. I'm going to pause that this month only because we're going through some of the recommendations that came from Max. And some of that is ways to better leverage your social. What we're finding is posts aren't garnering nearly the response that we used to get from them. And things are more dedicated to reels and stories and those longer, more interactive things, which we haven't done a whole lot of. We've done them primarily around events, not as a every week kind of thing. So I'm going to pause that expense for now until we really, I think, reformulate the plan and figure out where we can continue to get that big bang for our buck, which I don't think we're getting right now in just boosting the Downtown Chaska Facebook page. For Q2 expenses, we don't have anything budgeted right now, which I think is a good thing because again, in looking at some of Max's recommendations, I think we can lean in pretty heavily to that retention and the other word that I want, recruitment, thank you, piece. That was a big part of his feedback. That was a big part of the community surveys feedback. And it was a big part of the discussion that we had here is how can we find some other businesses, particularly restaurants, and get them here. So I think Julie and I briefly talked this week about maybe a smaller focus group of individuals from downtown. We'd love to tap Andy at Red Bench. She's got a lot of connections. And then engage potentially a realtor or something along those lines to help us drive that initiative. We can talk more about that when we get into it, into all of the current business, but we do have a good part of our budget designated for recruitment and retention. In the past, we've done, and I'm going to bring this up now because it's fresh on my mind. We've done things like the Christmas lights across in the park. So beautification falls into that kind of retention piece. We've done the sign grant program. That's where a lot of that money has gone because we haven't really done any true recruitment. One thing that we talked about at the 100 Club at our meeting last month was we love the lights over there. We're actually doing the tree lighting earlier this year in like mid-November in Fireman's Park in order to get a bigger bang for the buck and having things lit up over there. I mean, this year that the big tree didn't get lit until the 7th or 8th. And then, you know, Christmas is over 2 weeks later. So to make that more of a draw, we're going to light things up over there earlier. One of the things that we talked about though, is that is a huge expense. It's 10 grand in total. We take 5 and the 100 Club takes 5. We'd like to see the 100 Club take all of that expense and us not have to support that expense. That way we can use that money somewhere else. I mean, when you look at our budget of $58,000, $5,000 is a lot of money in that budget. Not that that isn't a great enhancement over there. The park's beautiful. And we keep those lights lit from November all the way through February to, again, try and get a good spend there. But if you all are aligned with that, then we will work with the 100 Club to do, we've talked about doing some additional fundraising, some additional tapping of sponsors in order to support that.
Yeah, just to provide clarification, the 10 grand is for the white lights on the
Yes.
trees,
The twinkle lights.
not the tree itself. It's the lights on the trees. And it's a company out of Excelsior that gets contracted, installs them. And then I saw them right after our 100 Club meeting, come and take them down.
Take them down, yeah.
And
this is like
it's quite a
5th year we've done.
task, though. I mean, the days they were doing it was windy and blustering, so, but that's what the 10 grand is.
And we have talked about like, is that something we could manage? But if you look at the size of the trees and the amount of lights and the amount of time, like, while it does seem like a large expense, it's probably not something that
Lift
we
up
could manage.
there and it's windy and I'm like, yeah.
Um,
Like Dan said, if volunteers did it, it would look like volunteers.
Yes. But that is something that we're focused on is trying to get that money back here so that we can then tap it for something else that helps us, particularly in that recruitment and retention. Because when we look at Max's feedback, a lot of that is how do we take what's in downtown? And this feedback came from everyone, right? Like, well, how do we create things in the downtown space and not necessarily across the street at the park where we're not feeling that draw to the businesses? So we'll talk later about some of the suggestions for City Hall and maybe the Pocket Park and the Paseos. And then tapping on to that, I think I saw a U of M hat walk in, but the U of M team will be here in May to present their findings. So we'll have some additional feedback on how we activate the Paseos and some of the other areas downtown that are new.
I don't know if we're gonna circle back to this, but you talked about proactively recruiting businesses for solicit input. Is that now okay?
How do we,
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Thanks for admitting.
I mean, it's Friday, we're all a little,
I just have a general idea is if we're gonna proactively attempt to recruit businesses, I just have suggested like SUAG, people that have been here for decades. Now, they can obviously decline their participation, but I think we should pause and try to not just new people with the loudest voice, but some people that have been here for decades and say, like Larry Atkinson, I think he's been here for a while, Sue Wagner, Randy Clay, who owns the building where the doggy do. I mean, he's been here and he was on
Doggy
41 and got relocated when they did the River Gables at that time, et cetera. But those are some people that come to mind. They can say no, thanks, but that we should reach out to them proactively.
I agree. And I do think having a focus group, a separate group that's really designated and tasked with kind of driving that initiative is probably key, because then it's not like we're saying you got to come and sit at our meetings every week. It's, hey, this is the agenda for this group and go do. So I think you're right, proactively reaching out to some people who have been here and anyone else who just has an interest in it. And ideas would be a good first
Maybe
step.
make it fun, be like, let's go have lunch somewhere downtown.
Yes. Should definitely be built around food. I like that plan.
Yeah.
Definitely, and
Really is our food.
yeah. I know I take way too long on the budget update, but I like us to all have a clear path of where we're going. Especially in these months where we don't have a lot of spending happening and, we roll into the third quarter with, well, about $45,000 sitting in our account because all of our spending happens in the later part of the year. But I think we need to see a little bit of a shift in that this year based on Max's feedback and some things that we can do in Q2 to set us up a little bit differently for 3 and 4. That is everything I have.
Great.
And the CDBA money has not changed.
Yeah,
As we talked
We had
last
a
time.
notion for that last month. I don't remember what that was.
Yes, we tasked everyone to walk away and think about what we want to do with that $1,600. It is just sitting in an account that has to be refreshed periodically because there is nothing happening to it.
Right.
One of the things that have been thrown out there is, do we donate it? One was to the Miracle League. Do we donate it in general? Do we do something with one of the parks down here? Did anybody have any thoughts or ideas?
I have another one, but it's like Carrie said, it's not direct, because she talked about the fact that that park is not in downtown and this money was originally solicited from downtown people. I'm on the Chaska area fishing with friends. I'm very active, involved in that. And we have in Fireman's Park, the first Sunday in June, Family Fishing Academy. And we are always looking for, because it's a nonprofit driven by donations, et cetera. I don't know if that would fit the criteria or not. It is in downtown, but our pontoon, it's a Chaska organization, but it's kept at Howard's Point Marina on Minnetonka, and that's where we take groups, not just from Chaska, but it was originally for senior care facilities, which is still part of our mission and our vision, but we do veterans groups, at-risk children, et cetera. But the event to kick off the season is in Chaska, first Sunday at Fireman's Park, and we always, I don't know, again, the board, we can talk about if that would fit the criteria, because it's not entirely in Chaska.
I think, I know we said last month to come with ideas and we'd make a decision, but now I'm thinking because we have more input between Max, Max is going to be on site next week and Julie and I are going to meet with him around things down here. And then we have the U of M presentation the following month that again is focused on activation. Like maybe we hold all of these ideas and then loop in the Max and the U of M ideas and then have a really large thing to vote on.
That's another good point. It's the research from the students, the paseos, maybe money, that part of that, all of that goes, because that is in downtown and it stays in downtown or the pocket park, et cetera.
We talked I think it was actually in the 100 Club, that the lighting for the paseos, the city is funding.
Right.
So there will be lighting in the paseos. If you've been by the paseos, the framework is up.
The arches are up, the poles are up, the string lights that'll go across kind of at those entry points still need to be installed, but we're getting there.
By the way, the arch is great touch and I've heard positive feedback already and they've only been up for a very short time. Cause I think that all these finishing touches downtown with the redevelopment, I mean, this is really where it'll.
Wayfinding signage looks,
It looked awesome. I noticed that. Again, I want to reiterate that I think it's important to do a smaller organization to have more of an impact, because $1,600 is not a huge amount of money, but
Yeah.
for something like Chaska Area Fishing with Friends or something that could be more impactful, that's what I would really like to see our dollars go there.
And I would say as well, that CDBA fund has no legal constraints as to where we can spend it really. I mean, as long as it's promoting downtown generally. Whereas the SSD funds are tax dollars for downtown, and that's pretty locked in stone, so.
And I could throw out, of course, that the Chaska Historical Society incorporates all of downtown. And we are all nonprofit. I'm not paid. Nobody is paid. Yeah, so we're always there too.
Like to take them, if we come up with 5 ideas, 7, 4, and then we toss them around, have a brainstorming or vote
Yeah.
or whatever, but yeah, all these have merit.
Absolutely.
But I like your idea of getting that other activation input to
Yeah.
kind of allocate resources in the best way. So,
Yeah, I do feel like we're on this tipping point of having a lot more information to work with on how we kind of move forward, and that feels good because for the last couple of years, it's been this group making those decisions, and now we've got a lot of outside input and thoughts, and I think that'll help us really, again, get the most bang for the buck and the most impact for the businesses.
I second Carrie, it should be downtown, because that's where the money was, and I also second Mel that the $1,600 for that park, the Miracle Field, is percentage wise just a real small, so we could have a more, on a smaller
Yeah.
project, we could be, it could be like 10% of their needs, or it could be 25%.
All right, any other questions on either of our treasurer's reports?
no, so then I need a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
I motion we approve.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. And a second.
Second.
Steve, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. For business road construction.
Yay.
All
Okay.
right.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have some time for Q and A if people have questions that are burning inside. But we can give kind of a high level overview of where we've been since the last meeting here. So we did close down the Bavaria Angler intersection on March 31st. We've been working on utility relocation, storm sewers going in. We're working on turn lanes for Prescott and Victoria to the west of our closure. Still targeting that June 7th or after school's done for the big closure of Highway 41 in Engler. And then also in the next couple weeks, we're probably looking at some work off the roadway far east of the main project area, east of Park Ridge Drive. We're working on our retaining wall and some trail sections for the Brandondale area.
Will that involve a closure down there as well, or no?
Nope, that'll be done off the road, probably a shoulder closure, but it should be minimally impactful for traffic.
June 7th, 41 Angler.
That's what we're targeting. The contract does not allow for that closure to happen while school's in session. And so the last day of school is, I think, Friday, the 6th.
Anticipated completion of just that part, the 41.
Supposed to reopen by the time school starts again. So I don't know the date offhand, the end of
I had a
August.
business asked me that yesterday.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that's what we're
41
targeting.
I told them that after school closes, first out, but I didn't know when that was. So June 7th, it has to be done
Thereabouts.
when school resumes.
Correct. And we do have a project webpage and we're putting out weekly updates. We had one go out, if you want to pull it up. Just some information on the work going on and other key points there. And then we'll have another one going out today, and the project website has all the detours and up-to-date information on where we're at.
Is the one at 11 and Pioneer, I know that closes on Monday. It's not part of this project, but it's another project that,
That one.
so that's like the back way to get to downtown. Jonathan Carver to like the street that I can never remember.
It's for that, those closures are further north.
Yes.
So, but are you thinking like people from Victoria?
So
or-
yeah, that my thought was, because I live up there and I was like, wait, how do I get downtown if 41 is closed and that's closed? They're starting that Monday. Is that going to be done before we close 41?
Are you talking about an 82nd?
Bavaria, I think.
It's
Okay.
Pioneer and or 11.
Pioneer and 11. Yep.
It didn't occur to me until like this morning. I was like, wait, how do you get downtown if you're on that northern?
Out by Marsh Lake, out that.
Yes.
Okay.
Doing a roundabout there?
Yeah.
Who's doing that project?
So
Does it-
Jen, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Already?
That project is also a Carver County project and, but the county is leading the communications on that one, so I'm definitely not the expert there, but I know that, the goal with that project is to be done as soon as possible, so early summer.
Okay.
Because then, yes, Bavaria and 82nd have to close as well,
Wow.
and trying not to have some overlap
Yep.
on some of those.
Yeah, I think when we talked originally, our thought was to to use that back way as a way for people to get down, which it does work for like the Clover Ridge and below. But all of that northern,
I'm gonna reshare this detour map.
because that
Oh,
was,
we-
one of my questions is like, we want to start putting out communication and maps and whatnot.
I
Right.
put a couple things at the bank, like I have one on my desk, but. But yeah, happy to put stuff in the lobby because we get all the traffic.
We did have a nice article in the Carver County Local News.
Yeah.
And I think we want to maybe submit more as we get
As it
closer.
goes. Okay, that's helpful. I'll kind of do some due diligence and just figure out.
Yeah, why don't you work with us? We can
Yeah.
help you with that. We can work with Sarah. She can help us with that too, about what are some of these local routes? How do they change based upon other projects
Other
that are
projects,
going on?
yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah, I think I thought initially it would be like a very clean, like communication plan, but I think we're gonna have to kind of phase it a little bit.
It may switch here and there, depending upon, you know, what part of town you're trying to
trying to-
pull from.
Yeah,
Or if you're trying to pull from Victoria or whatnot.
yeah.
So we can kind of, let's talk about that, and then Sarah, we may engage you to help us try and maybe create some more of these more localized maps.
Yep, absolutely.
Perfect, thank you.
And then I think the other piece that I just want to throw out, because I saw it come up in the surveys again. And Maria from Shop 501 reached out and had some really good feedback that we can talk about later. But one of the things that she said was about parking and the fact that we don't have a parking problem. We have plenty of parking. We have a problem with people knowing where the parking is. So I think this is another good way with these detour maps to reinforce where the parking is down here, because there is plenty of it.
My hope is the new signage will help drive
Help
people
too,
to those
yes.
public parking lots too, but yes, we should on those maps show where the
Yeah.
parking lots are.
All right. Well,
Any other questions?
we love road construction.
I was just gonna add quick for those of you in if there are any of you in the White Oak area, we are having a public meeting on May 21st, 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Valley Evangelical Free Church. Communication has not gone out yet for it. It was just solidified yesterday. So we're just FYI, we're just hosting this opportunity for businesses and residents specific to the White Oak neighborhood to come together with the project team, ask questions. We've had a lot of inquiries from that area specifically, so we just wanted to provide this opportunity to answer questions, especially to that group.
Sarah, will you email that to me so I can get that in the newsletter too?
Yep, absolutely, Steve.
Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, and then Jen, Elise, feel free to reach out if we want to update, edit, create more access route maps. Happy to help with that.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on road construction? All right,
All right, thanks all.
Thank you.
move on. Ex Music Camp project updates.
So I left this as just a general framework for us to start to talk about some of the things that Max is sharing. I didn't have a strict agenda put together for this initial time because I thought what might make sense is for us to talk through some of his tentative recommendations and start to prioritize what we think is the most important. And then for some of those where we think maybe a focus group can drive some of it, like the retention, then we can start to work on that piece. Are there any other thoughts around how you would like to tackle it? Okay, let me pull that up. I thought I had it up, but I did not. I will also share the Shop 501 feedback because they did a really nice job of, they weren't able to make the meeting, but they watched everything. All right, this doc went out on our recap of last month's meeting. So I won't read it word for word, but I'm going to hit the high level pieces. And then we can try, I don't have any sticky notes and colors. So I'm just going to take notes here on some of the larger pieces that we want to tackle. All right, so the general feedback, so this is his preliminary recommendations. So he will finalize all of this, but was that people are interested in going downtown. They like that we have a historic downtown. We're one of the few locations out in Carver County that truly does have a historic downtown, but they wish there was more going on. So obviously that can be twofold, right? Do we need more things going on, or are we not communicating effectively what is going on? That's just my 2 cents. Events, we need to orient our events towards the weekends when our boutiques are open. That has been something that we've tried to focus on, but we've definitely gotten away from that. So I think him pointing it out to really make sure when we are doing things, it's when there is activity happening down here is key. He wants to move the farmer's market into downtown.
Steve, I told you where.
We let him know that that's not a possibility for this season, but that we'll leave it out there as a discussion point as we move forward. There is the ability to maybe do some small scale programming in things like City Hall Plaza or the Pocket Park or the Paseos. So I think that's one big bucket for us to think about. And I think something like calling it small scale event programming. One of the things that he shared was series of events tend to be more successful than one-off events. So we are heavily one-off based, right? Like Halloween, hometown holiday. But when you do series of events, people get into that reoccurrence, like the farmer's market. Every Thursday, there's a farmer's market and there's music at the farmer's market. So thinking about things like that. Elise and I met with Patron after last month's meeting to get some feedback from them and just to help them think about things that they could do and things that we could do down that way to, again, draw people down to that Second Street area. And that was one of the things that we talked about. Like, we need it to be a series of events. We looked at the Shakopee Rhythm on the Rails to kind of get a feel for how they're pulling off such a big event multiple times. And what we found out is they have a lot of really big sponsors. So it's not them necessarily bringing all these huge acts in. They've got Excel Energy that's helping fund these huge acts coming in. But that's also something that we need to think about. Could we do bigger series of events with sponsorships from?
Excelsior has a series of events like that, and that's actually, I think, a Rotary initiative.
Okay.
Do we know why?
City, so.
No, do we know why Excel Energy would sponsor that?
So it's on our list to reach out to them, and Steve gave me his contact too, that he knows.
Had lunch with her yesterday.
Okay.
There's not many customers of Excel's in Chaska, and Chaska's probably gonna be buying out the 20 franchises that are here, so it's not really a market they're looking to invest in.
Yeah, because the majority of Chaska is under Chaska Electric versus
Oh, I
Excel
see.
is
Okay.
actually.
And
there's
Shakopee
like-
The
is.
city
and
has
Shakopee
their
is
own
not.
co-op.
I see.
And
Oh,
then
that's-
you get even a little west and you've got what's out of Jordan River Valley.
Like Centerpoint Energy.
There's people like Sprint though.
Yeah.
There's a lot of large.
Micronet, which is laying in new fiber. They probably want to get in front of people. and-
Yeah, out of curiosity, did folks have AT&T walk into their doors yesterday, last couple of days?
Yes. Well, I don't know who it was. Somebody came to my door, just made my dog mad.
Oh,
on a
okay.
meeting.
There
And he
were,
had
there were two gentlemen walking around downtown, came in and were trying to move you from Comcast to AT&T. And it was just interesting enough where I kind of had to question, is it legitimate? It appears to be. But as I saw
They're a third
them,
party.
um,
They're not the.
You can almost ask
AT&T.
them.
they're not AT&T here.
Yeah.
So anyway, he gave.
If you ever doubt if they're real, ask for their solicitor's license, because they shouldn't be going door to door with that one.
Okay, because they were walking in it for a long period of time. And so one question, is it legitimate? And then two, if AT&T is walking into businesses, could they be a sponsor? I mean, if it's a real deal. So I was just curious because I saw them going up and down Second Street and I didn't know if anybody else had that experience yesterday. That's a good tip though. solicitor's license.
So that's, I think, one thing for us to dive into when we think about programming is sponsors. I know you all, from the city's perspective for Parks and Rec, have kind of built a sponsorship program that's more geared, I think, at kind of the lower level things. And what we're looking at is like somebody who could help us bring like Hootie and the Blowfish here.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a couple different ways that we can look at it, but I think that's a piece of how do we do events when we don't necessarily have the funding ourselves to do the events. The other piece that we need when it comes to the programming is ideas. So obviously we threw music out there. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you all have some issues with your music events, like not drawing big crowds? Okay, I thought I'd heard that feedback.
That's because Chanhassen does music on Wednesdays, Excelsior does music on Wednesdays,
It was the day,
Victoria.
yeah, so we're trying Thursdays to see if we could get a better crowd.
Yep.
Okay. That is good feedback.
It's, yeah. Shaka's on Wednesdays.
The farmer's market, yep.
Yes, so there used to be two series of music, and we're just down to one, right?
Yep. Just down to one right now. Well,
Friday evening one.
hasn't happened just because we can't use City Square.
So right now, the music in the park is at Fireman's Park. It'll be Thursdays with the farmer's market. So we have Thursdays taken care of. Yes, I know. I shared that to somebody on Facebook though, and I did call it the right thing. So we have Thursdays.
Is that right that we can't use City Square Park for music events?
That's what we can't.
Yep.
Right now, the city council has not determined how that space will be utilized until after some of the work that needs to be completed there is done. So they haven't had a chance to talk about, you know, now that we kind of have had conversations with different folks. What does that look like? What does the council want to do as far as
Yeah.
the policy is concerned?
So we're still in that wait and see.
Okay. Yeah, you know, if there's a timeline on the work that's gonna be done at City Square Park
This summer, it should be done,
summer, so there'll really be no probably events or activities at all this summer
right?
at City Square Park.
Right,
Okay.
because of the work that needs to be done. Mhm.
And I will say a lot of what Max threw out there was not built around the park. It was built around the Paseos, the plaza down here, and potentially a pocket park if something like that came. So finding other areas in the downtown proper to do things.
You know, our sale runs through that park. So I think the sooner we can get that resolved, the better.
Yeah. And to your point, whatever the resolution is, we just need to effectively communicate it out so people understand the why, because there's so much misinformation out there right now.
We're aware of that.
Yeah. One of the other event-based things that he suggested, and I think we're going to get more potentially from the U of M presentation as well, but this requires business participation. And as we all know, sometimes that has been a difficulty in getting businesses to actively be involved in events. He suggested tours of things like a taco tour. So you hop from business to business and do tacos. I think we had talked, might have been Julie and I, about like
Social district instead of a drink.
yeah,
social-
or a progressive type food event where, you know, you go to one place for the dinner, you go to another place for the drinks, you go to another place for the dessert. But in general, like these tour type things where people go from business to business and engage at each one. We've talked about that before with that digital map that we can do like a check-in. So it's kind of like a scavenger hunt or a check into each of these businesses during the month of May and win a prize type of thing. The opportunity there is getting the participation. Like we can't do a taco tour if it's just Patrons. That's not a tour, that's Patrons. So one of the things I think we have to figure out is how do we better engage them and show them the outcome of that, of getting people in your doors. way, way, way back when, what is this, 10 years ago now? When we did the Ryder Cup 19th hole celebration down here, we had a lot of feedback from the businesses. So what we did is we had 18 stops, they were all businesses, and there was a scorecard that was shaped like a golf thing, and people got stamped when they went into a business. And we had a lot of feedback that, like, that doesn't do anything for me. It's just a person walking in and I have to take time to stamp the card. And really what we were doing is taking people who haven't been to Chaska before and pushing them out into businesses to see what is out there. They may not buy something that day, but hopefully we've given them that recognition and that moving through downtown that they now know businesses are here and exist.
I have a different perspective. That was by far, and we've been here 27 years, by far the best thing we've ever had.
I agree. I thought it was
Ryder Cup,
a lot of fun.
because we had people and then they milled around and I didn't know this was here and they saw their things and it was dispersed around because just like a golf course, I mean, and you had the flag out on the, like,
Yep,
just like a
flags at each of the
green
businesses.
flag at the golf course, and it was fantastic.
But yeah, that was some of the feedback around a big, and I brought that event up because the Ryder Cup is a huge event and there were thousands of people here, and that was some of the feedback that we got. So you can imagine when we go and we're like, hey, do you want to be a trick or treat stop? You can imagine why we don't always get all the participation that we'd like to see. So I think part of what we have to do is frame up the outcomes that they're going to get by being a part of these things, whether it's spending a little bit of time or spending a little bit of money on Halloween candy. And I think that's something that we can potentially use Max and maybe some of his case studies to help support, you know, when you do participate in these things, the name recognition, the location recognition, the future shopping potentials are there. Any other thoughts on events or locations down here?
Mentioned Shakopee and the series and using them as a template or a format. The one and done format, I think we should contact Belle Plaine. I don't know what their secret sauce is, but they have 3 every year. Big Irish community, so they have St. Patrick's Day. It's just busting at the seams. They have barbecue days, and then 6 months in advance of barbecue days, they have German days to notify people that in 6 months it's going to be barbecue days. Those 3 festivals just stretch that town, and I don't know what they do, but
Most them.
I don't know much about it. I've been there before, and and I've been there with people that are from Belle Plaine, and they're like, I don't know these. So they get people. It's an influx from out of the community.
So I'll add that so we want to talk to Shakopee and kind of get an understanding of how Rhythm on the Rail started and how they got those size of sponsors. But I think that's another piece to look at is if we are going to do one and done things. And I think a great example of that we know we need to build up is the new music event that I can't think of the name of.
Clay Hole series.
Well, Chaska Cares
Yes.
Classic.
Oh,
Because I think there's opportunity in an event that we already have that can grow.
Yeah.
That's kind of my question is why, and maybe we do, and I'm just not aware, but why aren't we collaborating? Why isn't Downtown Business Alliance, the Chamber, the Rotary, whatever, why aren't we all collaborating to make this bigger event, which I don't know if that's what Shakopee does, if that's just a chamber thing or what, but
or tourism. They've had tourism there for, 40 plus years, right? We
Yeah.
don't. But the Chaska Cares Musical Fest, that was started with Rotary, right, for the Miracle Field that has one mission.
With the city, I mean, the city probably does more of that. than
Yeah.
Rotary Club does. So, I mean,
Right.
that's a collaboration, but.
Yeah.
the smaller
Well, so the-
organizations and nonprofits, we can only provide so much, maybe more volunteerism or more promotion, but at the same time,
Yeah.
why not work together?
We like the Clay Hole series, and you have the Chamber here and Parks and Rec and City. I think that's part of that and the Alliance. But, and Dan, you are right. It is in Excelsior. That is Rotary, because I have friends that are, that Wednesday night
Yeah.
concert series.
Well, and Excelsior has a concert series like every other Friday night, I think, and they get decent acts and they fill up their lakefront park there. Again, I think Rotary with the city of Excelsior is how that happens. And the Rotary Club sells beer and
Do they do Wednesday and Friday? Wednesday,
Maybe it is a Wednesday night, yeah.
the Wednesday one, yeah, and
Yeah.
boats come into the harbor.
We
It's
also
a
have
nice-
lakefront too, right? So
Yeah.
we've got, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a, you're not comparing apples to apples.
Well, we've got our lakefront too, small.
Roll boat out there.
It is an interesting point, though. Maybe one project that we could do is just look at everything that happens and the partners involved in it and figure out where we've got opportunities so that we are walking and planning more in sync with things. Because we do have a lot of stuff going on, but it's,
The idea that the Duluth Rotary used to do a dragon boat festival where people would, you know, gussy up a canoe and get a bunch of people and they'd paddle around and have a little race.
Stillwater does something like that.
Oh, it's just a crazy kind of an event,
Doesn't
but
Stillwater do something where they all get in like pumpkins and race down the river or something?
Oh.
They do something like that, but we do have the river. Can we put people in little boats and race them down?
Pumpkins in a river.
The river at Stillwater is really rough. Ours is fine.
Ours are the bottom.
it's fine.
And the
We might get
interesting,
stuck. Don't get out of the boat. So,
the interesting thing I want to bring is, the Chaska Cares and then Fire and Ice. So the year that the Fire and Ice was moved to October, does anyone remember that? It was because of, do
Of
you?
COVID, yeah.
It was packed, but Johnny Home it was busting out. And then now we have Chaska Cares in like September and October, and that hasn't. So I mean, the same time of year, fall event.
still trying to figure out the proper format for that event, and I don't know that they've nailed it yet. So, I mean, the first year they did it, it was too much money and not attractive enough acts. And the second year it was free, so.
How were
it's
the
a-
financials this year? Because it was free, but yet then, you know, the food and
I-
drink.
They made some money, but it wasn't overwhelming.
I think the attractive act piece is
Yeah.
pretty key. So you said Johnny Holmes was there. I don't know who ever attended Good for Gary. They're phenomenal.
They're phenomenal.
I mean, people were,
Yeah, River City Days,
Dancing,
they
it was
pack this every
packed.
year.
and for multiple years in a row.
Mhm.
And so I think that's key. I think people, they're groupies, right? So
Yeah.
at all scales,
Well,
and people show up and then they bring friends.
Yep, and I
It's
know
pretty big.
River City Days said they're over $10,000 for the night, so that's why they had to part ways with River. Yeah, so that's tough. But they also do a great job with their marketing, and that's some with partnerships that we're working on at the chambers. Hey, if we're gonna do an event and partner with you,
Yeah.
share the posts, you know, get that marketing together, because, you know, when we do events and we're both sharing it and get everybody else to like and share it, it's way better than boosting a post.
Well, and
It's
I
a
wonder about,
organic boost.
you know, those in the community who would attend for Good for Gary has we ever approached from like a GoFundMe? Like maybe the community would pay for it. I mean, throw in $5 and you get enough people across the community to do that, to get Good for Gary, because they know, you know, it's like they're paying their cover charge in
Yeah.
advance. I'd pay that. I'd pay more than that to go see them.
You use the word groupies. I think when we look at bands to bring in, the ones that have the biggest social following,
Yeah.
that's why, because again, when Good for Gary was here, you look around, you're like, these people, I've never seen these people in Chaska because they're not from Chaska, but
Right.
they see on a social media post, hey, this weekend, Good for Gary's in Belle Plaine, they're in Shakopee, they're in Chaska, and they come.
We got GB Layton this year, that he's a big
That's-
draw.
that's a
He's
big
been
one.
around for
ever.
40 years, 30 years at
Yeah.
least. You know.
Armadillos, Shakopee has them every year,
Yeah.
and Excelsior Rotary gets them every year. They're a huge draw.
So Rhythm on the Rails this year did kind of a theme, it looks like, where they did a bunch of cover bands. So the first week, it's Neil Diamond. The second is AC/DC. The third is Journey Sticks, Kansas Foreigner. Then they do Def Leppard. Then they do Arena Rock. And then they wrap with the Armadillos. So that's a way where you don't necessarily have a big name, but you've got a genre of music that people are.
Right.
So that's another way to think about it.
Well, it's gonna change a lot when they have their Live Nation will be running their new venue.
Yeah.
When that is done.
You're
That's
talking
gonna
about the park at Canterbury?
be- Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the amphitheater there is gonna be
Yep.
amazing.
That's gonna be
So
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
what I wrote down for small scale programming or events is figuring out the sponsors, figuring out types of events, getting feedback from other places like Shakopee and Belle Plaine. Is there anybody who is overly interested in being a part of working on that piece?
I would get involved. Has, sorry to digress, but has Chaska ever tried a, ladies' night out?
Yes.
And I get that, and I don't know where,
Yeah.
what that is.
So I think at most we had like 6 or 7 businesses participate, which isn't really a draw, I think, for ladies to.
With it, what kind of businesses were
I
they?
feel like I saw a lot of traffic with it, though. I remember like, for sure, like Linda's and.
Yes, I think we
I
got
remember seeing
traffic.
a lot of people.
So when we first were doing it, we had a couple more clothing boutiques on Second. So there was a little bit more of a hub down there, and then Linda's and then Carver Junk. I think you did it a couple times.
Several years.
Yeah.
The city wouldn't allow us to pour wine.
And we can do that now.
The state doesn't allow you to pour wine.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a city. The city
No,
has
it's
to
a
enforce it, but it's a
license.
state.
You mean pour it for free or pour it at all?
Period.
It's a
You have to have a
liquor,
liquor license.
yeah, it's a state liquor license thing.
You could bring in a licensed bartender, but that's a state law.
Oh, okay. But so there's ways to get around it. You can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, I think it's like the social district, if we can get that through, that's something that could help with that. Because then you could have vendors come do that and then have people moseying
Yeah, the
around.
social district won't allow you to pour everywhere you want to pour.
No, but it
it'll allow you
allows it to go out.
Yep,
So.
yeah.
So part of ladies' night could be like Patrons, and you come to Patron, you get your alcohol,
Right,
and then you
could
go
walk in to your place.
to the other places.
Or could hire Minnesota bartenders, school bartenders for $25 an hour and they come do it because they have a
Yeah.
license.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was more of like, if we're gonna do it, we really need the participation so that it's a draw and that it's a thing. And it just, when we lost, I think the boutiques on Second, then it just became like Carver and Body Expressions and Linda.
They don't show up. I mean, they gotta start coming to these meetings and they gotta show up and they gotta be engaged. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
Sure.
it's on them just as much as it's, more than it's on the city.
Yeah,
so.
I have customers asking for it.
Okay.
And so I'm going to do it even if it's just me, because I'll extend my hours on that day. And, I've had people come in and say, if you close at 5 and I want to pick up my girlfriends, I have to leave work early. And then we had 20 minutes to shop and I'm like, no problem, fix that. And, I'm totally cool doing it on my own, but I would love to share the love if
Yeah.
it becomes a thing.
Well, let's,
Um,
when we recap this, I'll kind of put the event piece out there and let's include that as part of it.
And I think it's good, just good discussion to understand that if we said it will be a success period, here's what you have to believe. And it means you have a licensed bartender,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna get a licensed bartender, right? So I think, but everybody's gonna have their own, not everybody wants to serve,
Yes.
right? And so what is that? And then I think that's where the brainstorming and the network can kick in to say, what is it they're coming for? Because I more and more hear too, that's what, and I don't know if it's true, but that's what pushed Excelsior over the edge, is because the ladies came and then the guys were missing out. And so then they came, but they did something different. They went to the Legion instead, or they went somewhere else instead, just simply because they're like, well, my wife keeps going and I'd like to go, but I don't want to go where she's going. And so that's what I'm hearing.
Great idea though, too, to have a ladies' night out, but say, hey, guys, if you're coming too, there's deals at the
There's-
Legion or the VF or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Or, hey, if you're bringing your kids, or hey, if
Yeah.
whatever, if you come in sets of 3, whatever it is,
Yeah.
I think people, they latch onto that, becomes kind of game.
Can I get my bartender's license on the internet, like an ordained minister? Oh.
I love the creative
I
thought
would've.
though.
You can marry people by doing something online, but you can't serve drink.
Can't serve-
What?
Critical mass, you could also, to help the downtown businesses, if there's lots of businesses that don't have a brick and mortar. Leverage them to partner, so Carrie, you and I can partner, Shaded Spruce pays for the bartender. And so you bring others in.
I love
to
that
help
idea.
build that critical mass, bring people in, they're maybe not necessarily downtown businesses, but it helps you get people in and like, you know, helpers and things, that it's not all just on.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
do like a sidewalk sale that day to get, so people that are
Mhm.
driving through can say, oh, there's something going on down here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When is the parade of homes?
Right now.
Cause we've talked about it, about doing like a parade of shops, parade of businesses and, make those signs, kind of like you said, they make your golf green flags, but have a number, have a shop number, but you have to get people involved and that number one will be there and that will invest in their time and be open. But I don't know, I think something like that would be great. And consistency, if it doesn't work the first year, don't be like, it's crap, it doesn't work. Give it 3 to 5 years. I mean, we're gonna double in size in the next, 15 to 20 years, so there's plenty. Having that abundance mindset where there's enough for everybody, right? But
And
yeah, I
I
think,
like the collaboration, like, you could also talk to Lions and figure out like, when are they doing first
Yeah.
bingo? That'd be a great time to like do ladies night, while
Yep.
women are generally drawn to first
Yeah.
bingo more than men, so.
The another possibility would be to reach out to like the Del Webb community. They have a community room, they love events, they'll bring the downtown businesses to them with some sort of a boutique or something.
well, so who mentioned having the open spaces that we have downtown? Like you drive down 41, there's so many open windows,
Julie and I were just talking about that.
right? Like how can you like, hey, have a pop-up where you don't have a brick and mortar, but hey, you for such and such, you can have it for this weekend. And then you're gonna you show that you have stuff in the windows downtown, that'll help get people here and show up,
Yep.
If we could move Hayloft on Main Street, that'd be fantastic. Right on 41.
It's a very
Let's
old
go.
building. I don't think you want to move another old building.
She's got lots of parking right in front of her door.
I know, it's a
right?
luxury, yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Oh, pop-ups like crafters with their own pop-up tent. Maybe they chip in towards for the privilege of having a pop-up there for the few hours of ladies' night.
Yeah.
I'm a believer in strength in numbers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So when you have more vendors, more businesses.
Even food trucks where you encourage them to come, you're not paying them to come, but there will be people here, so
Yeah.
come where the people are.
Yeah, I mean, food trucks are like bands, like they have their own following and people know where they are. And I think we've aligned on with the food, with our restaurants down here, that as long as we engage vendors that don't impact the restaurants that we do have, that it's like everybody,
Just don't have a taco truck.
everybody plays.
I mean, that's what
Right.
we have downtown,
I had a
right? So,
customer say she drove like 30 miles for fish and chips out of a food truck, and I was like,
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
They're gonna,
Which one? Anchor fish and chips?
yes, Anchor Fish and Chips is so good. We had them at a wedding last year.
Yeah, I was like, wow, it's hardcore.
While we're on this discussion about events, any news on the social district?
So it's been introduced in the Senate. The House is not introducing anybody's. And so we're waiting kind of till the end of session. So Stillwater and Shakopee, as we learned last year, was not introduced till the very end of session. So we're still hopeful that the Senate's introduced it. There's several proposals out there, like Laconia has a request out there. I think Blame, there's a few others. We're waiting on the House, and there's some back and forth with the House right now on whether they'll even entertain this. So we're at the mercy of the legislature right now.
we were at the Chamber Day at the Capitol last week and talked to Representative Nash, and he said probably not gonna happen for individual cities. The one that
There's
kind
a
of
statewide one. Yeah.
state would say, like, I don't know, like, why does the state regulate marijuana and then let the city do it, right? So they're kind of like, hey, if you guys want to do social districts, leave it up to the cities. So hopefully, he said that one is if you're gonna bet on a horse, that's the one to bet on, so. That's some insider info there.
Keep trying though. Our lobbyist keeps sending stuff out. When they ask for stuff, we send it back, so.
And it doesn't hurt to, give all of our local reps a call and just say, hey, it helps out a lot.
As part of this, we kind of touched on the filling spaces. Are you and Julie kind of working on a plan for that?
Filling space.
The empty storefronts with something? Or should we have that as a discussion
Well, I
point?
think that should be a discussion here too. I mean, we don't own the properties, and so we're at the mercy of the property owners too.
We'd have to do something like a vacancy tax.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, again, Julie and I are just chatting right now, some back and forth of, hey, there's one particular person we're talking about, you know, maybe we give a call to on Monday and see if we can use their space for pop-up events or something like that. But I mean, if people know these property owners, I mean, that's helpful, but because we don't own any of them, I think it's tough for us.
What a great way for them to showcase their space. So who's their realtors? And you could say, hey, this is what this space could look like. I
Some of them
mean,
are not interested even in that.
So
because they have to work, right?
we need a list of property owners that would be interested, and then we need a list of people who would be interested in popping up or showcasing. in
Sure, there's
those.
insurance liability and all that, but they should be able to figure it out. I mean, it should
I mean,
be.
it happens throughout the country. I mean, I've looked at a lot of case studies that are really interesting, like they get to pop up and have have the space for a month.
How
You
does
know, allows them.
Halloween store do it, right? I mean, they just rolled,
Yeah,
you see
that's
last year, they went from,
example.
they went from Halloween and rolled in and did a big Christmas store last year, I guess. And that was a big hit, so. Why have a storefront all year when you could have it for a month? It's
Mhm.
just a genius idea.
Mhm.
I think let's, because I don't want to take all of our time up on that one. Let's move to physical spaces and talk a little bit about those spaces. We haven't had a chance to really talk about his idea of activating the plaza. But he really had two focuses for activating physical spaces. One was the plaza, and the other would be potentially the pocket park, or as he fondly calls it, the vacant lot. I like
I like the
pocket
pocket better.
And then, I think the U of M team is focused on the paseos, so we'll get some feedback on the paseos next month. So his ideas for activating these spaces were for the plaza, doing a lot of what we've done before. So games, remember during construction season, we had all of the different games out in front of different places for people to go around and play. Inviting signage, recruiting food trucks, things like bag toss, engaging the library for some things like a little free board game or library display. For the pocket park, his ideas were really like, how do you make it a destination? So is there an off-leash dog run? Some of the things I know we talked about with Nate originally, like, is there interactive things? I took a picture when we were on vacation last week. We went down to South Beach, and there's one whole space on South Beach that's just like musical instruments. They're like metal musical instruments for the kids to play. And it was really cool. Like they're shaped all like nature, like flowers and trees, but they're musical instruments. So those kind of interactive things that can weather our weather here. I'm sure they don't get a lot of snow in South Beach. Any other thoughts that you all have seen or that you're thinking about when we talk about activating spaces? And then I'll turn it over to you for your thoughts on activating the plaza.
I mean, I think generally we're open to having things on there. We just have to remember the condition of the plaza. It's not the greatest right now. We have plans to redo it as we redo City Hall. But I think, you know, the library is constantly asking to do things on the plaza. I know they've talked about having an herb garden, like a kind of an area, because they have their bigger garden over here on this lot. So the library has already kind of gone and done a lot of that. And so we're open to that. That's not an issue, just kind of being cognizant of how things, the condition of things out there.
That was obviously when I read his suggestion about the plaza, like it's not a very inviting space right now.
We gotta take down the trees because of emerald ash borer. I mean, I'm not trying to dissuade people from using that. I mean, I think it's a great spot. You have parking right here, you know, especially In the evening time, the parking kind of it opens up. If you did something during the day, we just ask City Hall people to move. That's not a problem. And I think
Like, engaging academia to, there for an artist in residence or someone where, especially if it's a master's student, where they're looking for if this space is free and there are provisions around how they use it, but they're the ones who do all the investing because it's in service of their show or their
Yeah.
whatever. You know, the U of M may come in and say, yep, if you're gonna lease us the space for a year, whatever it is, we will come in and we will do X. The city approves what the plans are, but they get to use the space for free. There's lots of programs out there where they're looking for someone to help them out.
I think
idea.
that's because one of the things that we had talked about with the Paseos was that there would be art potentially throughout the Paseos, but I don't think we ever,
We haven't gotten to that point.
Yeah.
yet, As far as the art.
so, because we know that's a draw.
Well, I think typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, you might know better, is a percentage, if it's tax dollars has to go towards, like 1% has to go towards art. Very often there's requirements.
As certain funding sources require that.
Yeah, and so I just know across the art and design world and academia, they're always looking for something. And it could be a sculpture garden, I'm not saying at the Minneapolis scale, but that something where people are walking around and there's placards and.
Yeah, we talked about that too. Like you had some pictures from places you've been that had like
Yeah.
the umbrella alleys or
Yeah.
like all of.
The gum alley, right, where we could just stick a bunch of chewed gum on
Yeah.
a wall,
Yeah.
right? That's a big
That's in
deal.
Seattle.
Community get involved.
It's true.
That's just-
Everybody come out, stick some gum.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
just
sure that
so-
property
So
owner
rough,
would
like
love
literally that place was packed, partly because it's right off of the market, but.
That's a real plane?
Pocket.
Oh, yeah.
We were just kidding.
No, it's
Oh, heavens.
And they clean it once a year.
You're thinking about what committees? You like this group to form, maybe it's an art committee.
Yeah. It could have a community bend too. I've had, I sell these old vintage padlocks with keys. And the bridge in Paris where you
Mhm.
go and you lock your thing, it could be a riff off of that where maybe the infrastructure is there, but then the community gets to come and make a wish or in memorial
It could even
of.
be a fundraiser for something.
It could be a
Like,
fundraiser.
a big brick wall where there's just like nothing. You put an arbor in front of it that people can come put like padlocks on, like
Yeah.
get an art display, right? So it's not touching the brick, a little disturbed.
Yeah.
But I always thought that spot looked a little blank and it'd be cool to do something there.
It would have to be like seriously steel or something, because isn't that
Yeah.
bridge like,
Steel, yeah.
They've taken them down a few times.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know that we'd have that many people.
Well, and it's not gonna, I mean, a bridge can collapse, right? But I mean, if it's something that's not, if it's gonna fall to the ground,
So
but.
if we had something like that or artists or what, who maintains that?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
So,
Okay.
I mean, and I,
Not gonna volunteer our
I was
staff
gonna
right away.
say.
But is the
City's
goal to
not
come and
gonna-
have people put a lock
Yeah.
down there to actually come and shop and
We'll have like a
spend some money
picture spot where
downtown
like,
and.
this is a
you
spot where you
know.
would come
The
and
selfie
take.
spot,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one on Second Street, isn't there like a little frame over there, just
yeah, so that was our
plastic?
DIY version of it. Cause
Yeah.
we talked about it for years,
Yeah.
about doing murals on some of the buildings because those are a really good draw for people to come and get their pictures. Like we've talked about.
The
national
wings, yeah.
All of that stuff.
Everybody's got, there's pizza wings in Stillwater, which is genius idea.
Yeah.
Come on.
So I think, yes, I think we've got probably two discussions here, like an activation of how we activate some of the areas and then like an art and or interactive type group as well.
And it doesn't have to be anything like super expensive or big. Like I remember going somewhere with the kids and there was like a guy making giant bubbles and like crowds just like,
Oh, sure.
cause it's just like, ooh, pretty big
Yeah.
bubble.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't have to be expensive.
Well, along those lines, we talked about instead of the ice sculptures, the hawks. I mean, it kind of
Chaska hawk on a brick. Yes.
5 of them around town or 10 of them or what have
30 of
you.
them.
Yeah, and part of that discussion then was we looked at like, could we do like the ferry doors where there were just tiny little things that throughout downtown that people could visit. I think that's something that we should revisit too, is big things are cool, but also like just little things that get people to move
Like
around.
Chaska Rocks already exists, but like partnering with them to do more rocks or like downtown themed rocks. So I think that's kind of needed, but that has a strong cult following.
I know like geocaching is getting really
Yeah.
popular.
Which we're really lucky, we have like a mega geocache, the library's on, our library has like one in the state geocache in it.
Well, you have to look at who you're gonna bring downtown, just because I'm in that period of my life where soccer and lacrosse are starting, it's like 6 nights a week, that's where we're going, we don't get to go downtown, because, so, hey, who do you wanna attract downtown? If you need to get the kids, or I don't know, how do you activate and get those sports clubs to do things downtown? If that sports complex happens in Victoria, that's gonna be huge. What is it, $40 million kind of an agreement is already on the table, and that'd be
Doing
Mm-hmm.
huge. That'll
something
bring tens of thousands of people here.
Timing it when there's a tournament, like
Yeah.
when they do the hockey tournament, or
Right.
when they, like, so that there's already people coming to town.
That's where that's where the restaurants have to step up. Because, and that was part of the discussion with Patron, is like, you have to make your own thing happen. Like, you have to know when there's a tournament, and you should have a margarita deal, and you should be blasting that out in that direction, because the parents need that after all those screaming children. They need it.
Or during the event.
That's
Well,
the
like-
draw for the sports, is like, we just had lacrosse and we're hungry, let's go to Size, because it's burger night. That's, I think, where we have to coach them.
I've talked with like C3 Lacrosse and CC United and said, hey, when you have an event, let us know. Community Park, there was a girls softball tournament. I didn't even know, and my niece was in town from Lakeville. So it's like, there were no food trucks there. There were no businesses that knew. They were staying in hotels in Minnetonka and Bloomington, and I mean, not here. So.
Maybe even getting, this is like a simple thing, but for those types of events that are happening in other areas of the city or nearby, like Carver or something, invest in a sandwich board with a QR code to the downtown stuff, and just, it just takes somebody dropping it off and putting it there, as long as the
Yeah.
event's cool with it.
But if you have the relationship with the organization that's putting on the event, and they're not gonna say, hey, we need to get 30 softball teams next weekend, who's gonna show up? They don't do that. It's schedules out a year out,
Yeah.
so.
And there's,
Does Parks and Rec know that in advance? Like,
yeah, usually. Zach, Batcher is the one that runs all that athletic fields and stuff, so.
that would be something.
Credit, by the way, that man does a lot.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I have so many emails from him. And I'm like, you do that too?
Yeah. I do like that's something we could invest in that is fairly cheap, is just sandwich boards with the QR code on it, and just simple, like, need dinner, need shop, like something like that. And it's just at those places. It's,
Cause they have like a few hours in between sometimes. Games.
Yeah, but if every team that is gonna play ball at one of our community parks gets a list of all the businesses, hey, in between games, come here, and the restaurants know, and they say, hey, show up with your softball gear, get 10% off. Or mom and dad get a free margarita, or whatever you want, right? I mean,
Yeah.
something like that will drive people down here.
Cause Cuzzies used to be the spot to go,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there were just teams, like it was just full.
That's because you could show up with 30 people, and they used to be able to handle it.
um,
Jen, when I think there's a digital welcome packet that we could give to, who's it, Zach?
Yeah.
And then when there's a tournament or these teams registered, kind of like the welcome neighbor thing, but it'd be digital, and this team XYZ gets this one,
I do-
whatever tournament.
Great idea.
reaching out to not only Zach, but to like Chaska Baseball and CC United, and like all of the big teams that are here with that digital welcome packet, and just say, this is something you can share out.
Yeah.
So that people understand the resources they have for shopping and food and things to do other than the tournaments.
The reason I bring up Zach is everything has to go through him to rent fields, to preserve the field. So that would be one point person, because everything has to go through for field space rental.
Yeah, I just threw out the other ones because I just got our Chaska baseball schedule, and he plays half the time at a Chaska field and half the time at a Carver field. So then like at least we could cover all the bases.
But also getting the word out to the businesses around, not to add anything more to Zach's plate, but to let everybody in Chaska know that, hey, the girls softball teams are coming to town, to your point, to put together specials or whatever.
I don't want to put it on Zach. It's up to the businesses to do the work.
is.
But is
Figure
that
out what's
something where
going on
like,
in the
would you
market.
guys use like a Facebook group? Like if it was all the downtown business owners were in a Facebook group, so that it could just be a post that went up and said, here's the tournaments coming to town. Like, what's the easiest way for you guys to know about these things? Is it email? Is it?
I mean,
Downtown Chaska, I mean, you could always share it there, but you don't see it all the time.
so we do have a Facebook group for the downtown businesses. It has like 6 people in it. One of the things that we started doing was connecting calendars. So we bought this widget that we can connect to business calendars, but calendar has to be shared the right way. That would be an easy win. And I know originally it didn't work, but we should relook at that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because then we can just feed everything to our calendar. And then we've got visibility, and then we can just instruct the businesses, like everything that's happening is right here. So make sure that you're aware of it and prepared for it.
Yeah, even if it's just the headline, the business could go in and go do the research. But,
Yeah,
like
and
you
let
said,
them take some
something
ownership.
starts, we don't have kids. I'm like, I'd have no clue. I'd have to just go
Right.
find it.
To provide some
Go
clarity,
look
I'm
for
not
it.
saying Zach would do this. We would just send out a mass appeal. We're putting together for calendar year 2025, 2026, a digital welcome packet, if you will. Do you want to participate? So this would be for softball, hockey, lacrosse, whatever. Anyone that has to go through Zach to reserve event space. a
Men's
field,
volleyball is a thing.
Yep.
Did you know that?
Whatever. So then this packet's together. And then when someone reserves the ball diamond, the field for soccer, lacrosse, that it automatically goes back and kind of their confirmation on space rental. Zach would not be going out to businesses to get.
Right.
No.
Right.
Nobody
So like-
suggests, I don't think
I
anybody
know, but you
suggests
said
that.
Zach shouldn't have to do that.
No, you
For
shouldn't.
clarity, I'm saying Zach, that my idea didn't involve Zach doing that. It'd just be to bounce it out.
Information.
And then every year, just say, we're doing this again. Do you want to opt out? Do you want to opt back in?
Well, it's as easy as saying here, these are all our city parks. Here's a schedule of tournaments that's gonna be there. Businesses go do your thing. I mean, you don't have to be, doesn't have to be a lot of work.
But I think that's too labor intensive. It would be one time and it would be for all events, not situational correspondence. This is what we're putting together for the calendar
Is
year.
there a website that has all the parks listed?
Oh, it has the parks.
What's going on, what tournaments or who's renting it or anything, no?
More like shelter rentals, not necessarily the fields.
When I'm someplace, I'm looking for restaurants near me.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily, of course, my kids are older now, so I don't have events, but if I had an event, I probably would be like, oh, let's do that. If there were specials or whatever, but if it's just me going into a different city, I'm looking for things to do in Chaska or whatever, so.
Or even if like a restaurant wanted to do a pop-up event, like at the field or like at the rink, cause I know like when we're at the rink, sometimes you can't leave, but it would be nice to like have food there.
Instead of a
Like
hot dog?
dogs. Yeah, I love hot dogs. You can only eat so many hot dogs. It
One
might give them
thing,
some recognition, like,
Yeah.
oh, and then people would go there later.
if you want to look at investing that $150 into something different, instead of boosting your page, you could look at geofencing. That is pretty awesome. You geofence and you can pick a specific location, and when people go in there and they're on Facebook, that specific area will show up. Granted, it's got to be all about timing, but geofencing is something that would be pretty good around events. You could have Hayloft Studios, doing an ad, boom, right during their softball tournament or volleyball or whatever. Come downtown.
So clearly this is more discussion needs to be had, because not to be a clock Nazi, but we're
Yeah.
14 minutes away and we haven't done city
So,
updates.
Yeah.
so I want to do a pocket park update, but I'll give you guys, the city updates next. But one of the things, this was our last big piece from his that I wanted to cover today, because there's more work we have to do on these. Some of these other things we already had in play, like he suggested we do a newsletter. That was something we've talked about doing, bringing back the community newsletter. He's going to feed us a bunch of emails, so that'll help us kind of boost that piece. But he did, he did say that he thought the focus of our meeting should be more of this, gathering feedback, building plans, coming up with actionable things for us to go do, then updates. That we should transfer those updates to the email afterwards. That way they're there. And Julie and I talked yesterday that I think I agree with that. I think there are some key things that we do need to talk about. Like I'm sure everybody wants to ask the question of what's going on with Cooper's. Like there are some key things.
Yes, we were told we'd have one.
And I
Let's
don't want
go.
That brings people to the meetings. like-
Yes, I don't want us to fully get rid of those things,
No.
but they should be maybe focused on like a quarterly basis. Like right now in Q2, we know Cooper's is a big thing, City Square West, because we saw Taylor was,
With Lucy.
like, there's some key things that each quarter we could be focused on doing updates on. And I also don't want to cut out like the History Center and the library because there are key things that you all have going on. So I think if we just think about quarter by quarter, short minute updates, then that'll let us do a lot of this work. And if we do build our focus groups out, then those focus groups can come back and give updates. We can make decisions and we can go.
I think if everybody here can share the downtown business Chaska page or the events, that'll help, right? I mean, that's, like I said earlier, that's one way is if we all share it, if you make a post and we all share that post, it's just gonna organically be boosted versus paying for that to be boosted. So there's kind of an expectation, you're part of the group. I mean, you own your building, so you directly pay for it. You don't own your building, but you get to come here because your building's in the district. So that's something, hey, just because you're not an owner, your business is still here,
So,
just be engaged. I don't think it's that hard,
All right,
right?
city updates.
Yeah, so we talked about the paseos, the arches are up, things like that. I wanted to point that out. I've been posting pictures of them because I literally almost crashed my car when I saw that they were up because I was so excited. So if you saw a Toyota SUV pulling into the parking spots and almost dying, that was me. And then exciting update, which you kind of touched on briefly, but we did have a hearing with the House Capital Investment Committee. Representative Ream had authored a bill for City Square West. So Mayor Hubbard did go down and present in front of the House Capital Investment Committee and kind of made our case for that 7.825 million that we're asking from the state for the City Square West project. So that's good news. That's exciting. It is helpful when we can get in front of the legislatures and make that ask and that, put a face to it, put some passion behind it. And they've done some funding of it, and it was it 2 years ago. So that's helpful because they typically, if they've already put money into it, I think we've said this before, if they've already put money into it, they want to see the project go through, and so we're more likely. So appreciate Representative Ream for authoring that bill, and then of course Mayor Hubbard for going down and supporting it. But that was kind of the big news of the week, was that happened. And then beyond that, that was kind of the big things. I don't really have anything else. I think we'll get to the exciting news that you're gonna share with us.
Do we know how much they already have in to City Park West?
We received about 5.5 million a couple of years ago.
And the goal is there, you mentioned this last time and I forgot.
Yeah, I mean, so we have an ask us 7.8 million.
7.8 million. And it's a mixed of private and public.
That's 12.
So I think we're gonna just try and get as much funding as we can and then look for that private.
Yeah, I mean, so I think,
It's a $50 million project total.
Thank you.
I think that's the big thing. Some of it's public, some of it's private, depending upon, how much money we get. This year, if we get money, okay, what can we do? How do we move forward? So I don't know if we have an exact answer for you.
Okay, that's the round numbers. That's all good. Yeah, thanks.
Drum roll, Cooper. They have sold, the Klein family has sold, and it will become a Supermercado Loma Bonita.
Say that again.
Say that again?
A Supermercado Loma Bonita. They have places in
Yeah.
Savage and Crystal. They are building
Pretty.
in Richfield right now. They are going to completely, they've had a chance to meet with our building inspections and Julie. And so Julie, pipe in if I miss anything, she's online today. They are going to completely remodel the entire store. And you will come in, you will see a mix of goods there. But the stuff that I think is really cool and exciting, they'll make homemade tortillas that you can just purchase right there. They'll have ice cream, a station. They'll have a number of other kind of just really kind of specialized stations.
So like a Savage store.
Like an Asian market, but
Yeah, kind
Smaller
of,
scale
but,
kind of thing.
but smaller scale. So I think the Savage one is a little bit smaller than we're talking about here. Their location up in Ridgefield will be a little bit bigger because it's an old Rainbow Foods that it's going in.
Do we have a timeline on this redevelopment?
It'll take till the end of the year.
End of the year? Oh,
Yeah,
Is this a Minnesota-based company or are they?
yeah, they're in Minnesota. Mhm. Yep, they're local.
It's
And-
not a grocery store per se?
It is a grocery store as well. Mm-hmm.
Just themed toward Latino price or will it be,
I don't know. Julie, do you know that answer? Is it just Latino products or are they gonna have some kind of American stuff as well?
Hopefully you guys can hear me.
Yep.
This will be their biggest store, so they are gonna probably have a mix. They're really wanting to gear it towards being a community destination. And I think it will be a regional destination as well.
Well, is there Latino lettuce versus like?
No, yeah, I was gonna say the Savage Store has great produce.
Yeah.
And
produce
things
is
which I know
produce.
something people really loved about Cooper's is they had a great meat department, great produce department. And I know the Savage one has fantastic produce. I've stopped there before. So I think it'll be a mix. Even Cooper's had a large Hispanic section, everything. So I think this will be like fit our community well. And they are always really busy when I drive by some of their locations. So that's fantastic too.
Yeah.
But it brings food back into downtown, which is huge. And to your point, lettuce is lettuce.
Right.
So.
So, yeah, and like Julie said, it's that regional draw, and I think that'll add a lot. It's something different that people will actually drive to. So we're very excited. So,
And then I was just gonna also mention, Julie's Chaska Business News emails, so hopefully you've all been getting those. They're fantastic and she features businesses and things in there, just news about things going on. She'd mentioned the survey, local businesses in the news, business spotlight, so if you don't get those, you can reach out to Julie. If you wanna be in them, reach out to Julie as well, cause she looks for business spotlight. I know you're on so you can talk about it, Julie, but yeah, wanted to drive that too.
And we're using some of her content then for the community newsletter that we'll put out. That way we can just hopefully get as much information out there as possible to, not only to share it, but to get rid of some of the misinformation that's floating around too.
Yes, thank you, Michaela and Jen. And if anybody has business news or updates they want to share, send it my way and I'll put that in the newsletter as well.
Thank you.
So last 5 minutes, I'll open it up. Chamber, Parks Rec, History Center, Library, anybody have any pressing updates they'd like to share?
Go ahead, ladies. I've got a couple new members that are downtown. One's downtown Chaska, one's kind of uptown. Was kind of midtown, I guess, kind of exciting. Met with them. Batting cage.
Yeah.
Just they're waiting for their equipment at the end of the month. And went and met with Nicole and John's the general manager and they're just super excited. They're gonna have tons. I think they're gonna have 5 pitching machines that'll be here hopefully by the end of the month.
Where are they gonna be located?
That's right, by Swaglock and Imris. So in the Industrial Park Southwest Eye Care off of Engler.
Okay.
That makes a
So-
good spot for rack cards about downtown, cause those DBAT's like a huge draw.
A huge draw.
Huge draw.
There's nothing
So having
out
It's
something
like
about
188
downtown there.
188 franchises. So
Wow.
like just growing up here, the last 17 years with my kids, there's no place to go. You go to the community center, they've got the one cage, but pitch to pitch is private. You have to pay to play. Here you pay to play, but it's open for anybody. So you can walk in and I already asked if there's gonna be beer and stuff there. They said no, but they have talked to a couple that have done like these because they have this like you go hit golf balls, they have the golf ball tracker, the trace technology. So they have that with the baseballs. So you can see how far your baseball is gonna go with your exit velocity and all that stuff. So there's a couple that have done kind of like beer leagues where they can have home run hitting contest or whatever. But then the other one is Walk Your Plan MN. And as a local realtor, that is going to be doing something here in Chaska, and it's I don't know, pretty cool. So there's some fun new businesses that I think will help get engaged with our community. So that, and we're getting ready for first responders luncheon and the Taste of Chaska. So pretty excited about that. I've got our new challenge coins for this year. Pass that around. This is last year's and that's this year's. So we've got, I don't know, almost 50 vendors for the Taste of Chaska and almost 100 people registered for the first responders luncheon. So
I'm just gonna say real quickly that our Murder and Mayhem and Chaska tours could really use some more people registered for them. I have put it out in a lot of different places, but word of mouth is always best. We're looking at the last weekend in April and the first 2 weekends in May. So the 25th and 26th, it's Friday night at 6:30 and Saturday afternoon at 1:30. And those are a lot of fun. And it's just a walking tour of downtown Chaska. So you get to really see what it's like down here and check out what businesses are here and stuff. So.
and feel free
Yeah.
to bring your coffee mug,
a
right,
sign.
and walk with you.
To put up at the bank with like a. I would love to do that. I think a lot of my clients would really like, I want to do it.
I do too.
I was talking to Bertha, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to sign.
I agree. If there's I was talking to Ruth about this.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, cool.
A way, even if it's digital, that we could do the printing to have by our point of sale to promote it.
Okay.
A lot of people come in and they're asking about Chaska. I share what I know. But to drive them in that direction is a great way.
Made cards in the past of all of them, but to
Even-
do the turnaround, for that, I'm afraid.
No, I think even if it's like a
PDF.
flyer type thing that I can print and
Yes.
have, we can print it.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
be great.
That was something that Maria, Shop 501, that all of the online resources are, a lot of times come in and ask the question right there and want to take something. So I have that as a discussion for us to think about. And maybe it's not, like in the past, we used to print our map and gave them to each of the businesses. Maybe it's as simple as that, or maybe it's that we come up with a holder that each business can have, and if nothing happening goes in the holder. If there's nothing happening, then it's just a picture of the map. But I think there is something for us to give resources to the businesses to answer these questions and point people in the right direction.
Kelsey, do you have a vestibule or something that you put it in? Because I know we're limited from a compliance standpoint of what we can put like at the teller line and stuff like that.
Space.
Okay.
Lisa, when's the GA cemetery tour?
The GA Cemetery Tour is June 28th, which is a Saturday, and there's a tour in the morning at 10:15 and another one at 1:15. And we have the reenactors coming again to play the parts of some of our dearly departed Catholics.
All right.
So a big shout out to the library. We always got lots of stuff going on, so lots of programming, lots of story time. Our community garden's gonna start up again, so check out us online or in the brochures, and hopefully that helps bring people downtown too.
Yeah, the library is awesome. I'm going to reach out about the community garden because I think if we could do more community gardens, I think that would be such a huge win. So I think we should talk about the ones that we do have. They're really cool. Says the person who can't garden.
You can have chicken.
Yeah, the chicken's doing great. Need eggs, let me know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had someone coming in and asking about that as well. Can Chaska residents have chickens? And I said, call the city. I don't know. I don't know.
I have an antique lock here. I don't know.
I don't know about the chickens. Apparently I look like I know.
Are there any chickens in a hayloft?
No,
No.
not today.
I didn't know you had locks, so I'm.
Yeah, they're cool. They're all.
All right,
Okay, I think that's it then. So,
yes.
any other updates?
I mean, do you have
New
to?
business? Parks and Rec?
Not really, but I'll be sitting in my car. and
The
I'll
whole
read
series,
that.
yeah, that's all, yeah. We moved the community park,
Then
which is, the community markets is gonna have the farmer's market, so we moved it again to help with the city parks, Parks and Rec with their clay hole series. Just saw a guy last night at the cap agency, we're at their fundraiser, he's playing his electric violin. He's from Minneapolis, but he said he might be interested in popping in. I said, won't pay you, but you can come down and play and get your name out there. Right? So looking for more artisans like that, people who are interested in having a free space to show their talents. So Mel will be doing stand-up one night.
Sure. I'm just gonna stand there, but.
If that's what you meant by stand-up, right?
What's that?
It's called seeing us.
That's right.
Okay, well, then I think we can be adjourned. So thank you, everyone.
Everybody.